And I showed him the contract. And he's like, that's great. I mean, how did you do this? I mean, I really want to know how you did it because, you know, you you are you've been a salesperson and account management. This says talent specialist. And this is not the rate that they're giving in the market. And I'm like, yeah, I negotiated it and I got it. And he's like, how did you do that? I was like, that's what I've been doing all my life. 16 years, I've been selling things, convincing people to do things. So I just sold my profile and I sold my expertise.
Ragi Kuttikate, thank you so much for
Yes.
coming on the Entrepreneurial Engineer. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me, Darren. And I think I'm going to ask you the first question, maybe, because this has
Oh,
been playing on my mind.
sure, talk to me.
um, I saw two of your podcasts that saw through your email, and the name of your podcast is Entrepreneurial Engineer. I'm not an
Yes,
engineer. I'm not an entrepreneur yet. Then why me?
it's a very good question. And look, the podcast aims to focus on many parts of the entrepreneurial journey. A lot of the guests I've had really probably wouldn't even call themselves entrepreneurs. In my mind, the entrepreneurial engineer is a mindset. Yes, it may be and does have the word engineer in it, but it is about a mindset and about providing inspiration to young professionals, whether or not they're engineers or entrepreneurs, to give them, that understanding about what other people have been through, the stories that they can tell, and really trying to give some guidance and insight into what are the challenges that other people have been through. My understanding is that you've gone through a journey in your own career, and you've also, set up your own career coaching business, which for me, you say I'm not an entrepreneur, but anyone that goes out on their own or decides to start a business, in my mind, should get some level of respect. I'm sure has many a story to tell on how they got there. And I actually think that there's varying levels of entrepreneurship. I don't think you need to have $1 billion valuation or the next unicorn to be an entrepreneur. I don't believe that you have to invent something or, be at the forefront of innovation. For me, it's probably about that mindset of believing in yourself and hopefully sharing with others the journey that you've been on. So that's probably a very long-winded answer as to why I thought that you'd be great. And I think the other thing too is, the area that you play in, particularly with, strategic talent acquisition within, that whole recruiting space, career coaching. I would hope that there's lots of insights that you could give the listeners that they might not know already. And, if you could just share some stories on the way, I think that would be amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Darren. And yes, thank you for that explanation.
I hope it was close. For me, the whole idea here is, I've got young undergraduate engineers, I've got graduate engineers, I've got grey hair engineers, I've got people who used to be engineers, 30 years ago, and now they're in, advisory and executive roles. I've got people that started companies, people that work for other companies. Really, it's about trying to extract the knowledge and the golden nuggets of information that will just try to give some people some inspiration. And so they know that, someone else has been through what you're going through, or maybe you didn't think of that, whatever that is. And that is the beauty of having these conversations because they are just raw, they're informal. I don't
Yeah.
have, sure, I've got plenty of questions for everyone, but, there's no rhyme or reason. This is about having real conversations with real people, and hopefully people can listen in and get something out of it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you.
No problem. So tell me on that, What mission are you on right now, and what gets you up in the morning to strive you and move you forward?
Um, what gets me up in the morning? I've got a 5-year-old, so I don't have an option, but I have to get
For
up. I
sure.
have to get out of
Yes.
bed.
Yes.
Um, in terms of, being really serious, I think I love what I do. I enjoy talent, recruitment. I look forward to, posting on LinkedIn. I like to talk about my journey. Like to acknowledge that, I come from a space of privilege. Not many people have that. But having said that, I also have seen different people who have been on this journey with me, and their journeys have been very, very different from mine. So yeah, I want to create a space for everyone where whatever background, culture, experience, countries that they come from, um, they are valued for the skill set, the talent that they bring in. And if I can make that space, one hire at a time, one conversation at a time, I think that makes a big difference to me. I sleep well in the night, thinking that I'm able to do that.
So tell me, how important is making impact for you, and how much does that drive your motivation?
Um, I think I think the way I look at it, it's yes, everything I do, I want to make an impact. But there are at times the impact that would happen might not be instant. It might not be tangible, um, and hence I am. I think I feel better not really quantifying it and just keep on doing what I got to do. So it's instead of just measuring everything and quantify everything, I want to keep at it and just let the rest play out. To give you an example, when I write on LinkedIn, um, I just think if there's one person who would have read it and would have made a difference, or they would have even picked up one line of that post and used it, or would have felt better that day. I think that's all it takes. I mean, I feel that would have been a successful post, and that keeps me going. Just that thought keeps me going. And I don't think I really want to quantify, because I think if I start quantifying it, I might over engineer things, and I might complicate things, and it would just rather make me think through things that I don't want to. Because every time I've tried to, I've seen something work and I've tried to over engineer it, it has just overcomplicated things. And I've come back saying, no, I just want to write um, and put what I feel raw, unfiltered, um, and not have to sugarcoat it or not have to change it. If that's the first thing that came to my mind, I would just want to write it just the way it is. It is. And at times I put that a note or a word of caution saying that these are my opinions. And this is this person, random person online who thinks like this and is writing. So yeah, I think I don't know whether it is creating impact or not. But when I get messages and when people tell me that, they liked a particular post, I think those are days that I really, really feel good. But I've never thought about it as to what was the kind of impact that it is having, or whether it has any impact.
Yeah, I mean, if your message or what you're saying can help, one person, it's done its job. And I really appreciate you, clarifying that in such a way, and, quite eloquently, that says, I'm just speaking from my heart. This is what I feel. And, you just hope that there'll be someone, and it only needs to be one person, and, that's all you need. And then anything else would be a positive or a benefit. So, I really like that. So tell me, you went, and I had a look at your profile and bio, you went from customer service, account management, and then into strategic talent acquisition. Tell me, how did you make that, that segue, that transition? Was it just a moment in time, or was there something that led you there, or something you always wanted to do? How did you navigate that transition?
Okay. It's a bit of a long story.
Hey, we've got
Um,
time.
okay, let me start from customer service. So, I graduated in I think to 2021. Yeah, don't remember now. 2005. Yeah, that's when I graduated. And I wanted to follow what my brother was doing. He was working in a contact center. Contact centers in India, when he started, were really, really big. So it was a massive boom of contact centers or BPOs, KPOs coming into India. And pretty much every first world country was outsourcing to India. So India was that, massive market, and he had got onto it in the very, very beginning of it. And he had done well for himself. So I kind of knew I'd be, following that because I was an arts graduate, and that's it. I did not want to study any further at that point. Had no plans to pick up anything. I just wanted to, be independent, get started working. That did not happen in the very, very first year, and I picked up teaching. And the teaching was not out of choice, but more of my brother said, you can't move to. So we lived in a very remote, small town. Traveling from there to the main city, which is Bombay, was highly impossible. And it not impossible, it was possible, but it would take a commute of like say 4, 5, 6 hours one way to get to work and
Wow.
then come back. He had done it because there was financial circumstances in the family made him do that, and he kind of did it as well for about 9 months before he decided to stop and find another way to do it. So he clearly knew I couldn't go on that path because being a girl, that was not safe. B, from the age of 9 months old, I have asthma, so allergy, all of that. So it was not possible. So he said, take this job. This is like close to home. This will help you learn, patience because this is kids, so you to manage. So it'd be nice for you to do, and it would be good for you to brush up on your comm skills because you're going to teach them English. So
Yeah.
nice for you to do that. So I said, okay, just 1 year. And I said, 1 year, that's it. That's all that I'm going to do. And he said, yeah, just 1 year. I need 1 year to figure out what I'm doing and, get you off here. We did that. Fast forward, I was doing well in contact centers. My brother moved to the UK and I said, okay, maybe I want to, maybe I don't know whether I want to, but I want to just travel and see the world and make that decision whether I want to move there. I did move, went to University of West London, did a grad cert course, and I thought, okay, this is a segue to stay and find a permanent residency and so on. I was the last ones to get not get a post-study work visa, so the only option that I had to live was to study and study and study, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. So I packed my bags, came back to India. Now, up until then, I would only done customer service, contact center, so customer service, quality. So I had moved up the roles. So from taking calls to being a team leader and doing quality and training, I had moved up the roles. When I came back and when I went away and I did the course, I never had thought that I'll have to come back. My plan was I'm going to settle because my brother lives there. Now I'm going to live there. That did not
Yeah.
happen. So when I was coming back, I was like, oh, I've got a degree. I've upskilled myself. I've traveled, so my resume looks brilliant. Anyone would want to hire me. That was not true. I came back, and the job market was like, who does this? You had like a proper job. You gave that up and created a big gap in your resume of 2 years, and now you're thinking you want to start at the same level. I'm like, that's not true. But that was what it was. I had to start scratch again. So 7 years completely wiped out of my resume. I had to start again. And the only job that I had and was offered was a sales role. And I was like, I was so desperate. I was like, I'll take it and I'll do it. So I took not just took, a level, and it was a different industry, also took a pay cut. And I decided, okay, I'll do that if that means. So it was literally starting everything again from scratch. So sales, 6 months into it, I found it really, really interesting. I thought it was, I had it in me, and I liked it. It was a small company, so if I did not sell a particular month, people wouldn't get salaries.
Wow.
So I had to sell a particular amount for people to get salaries, and if I didn't, that means the salaries are going to be delayed. So it was not just me meeting targets. My targets meant someone's going to get paid. And if
Wow.
I did better, and if I renewed, then their incentives and the bonuses and all of that will come. And then the company will have more funds to put in again to development and research and all of that. So it was a small software company. It was a SaaS model. So that's when I started feeling that. And I spent 2 years with that company. I felt sales was really interesting, but I wanted to do bigger sales where the ticket size were bigger. I'm not just selling, but I'm more like account managing. So, having a particular client, selling one product and that way. So that's what I wanted to do next. And then I took another role, and then went on, and, one after the other. The last role that I was in India was WeWork, which was the co-working space. WeWork was
Yep.
launching in India, and they were setting up their first core team to launch in India. And I was, I think, the 7th employee to start, and the first employee in Bombay to launch WeWork. And that was sales, and that was big ticket size and all of that. So it was all nice. Life was good, career was going well, everything was going as per plan. But the thing about coming to Australia or going to a different country was always there. So whilst I was at WeWork, I'd already put in my visa application and my expression of interest and so on. So that was going on the sidelines, and my team knew that was there, but they never thought that it would come and then I will just pick up my bags and just decide to go.
Wow.
But when I got it, I said, I had to make that decision. I was at summer camp, I still remember, in London, and I said, I've got the visa and I want to go. First, I was like, I don't know whether I want to, but we were in this session, and Adam Newman, who was the founder of WeWork, and he was talking about something, how it's important to do what you really love, and be passionate about what you want to do. And I was like, okay, this is what I want. I want to travel. I want to explore. I wanted to try. I don't want to be thinking 10 years later that I did not try, whether it was worth. So I did that. I did tell my leader then, and they said, yeah, we're supportive, go for it. And if you don't like it, you can come back. So I said,
Wow.
okay. I
Nothing to
packed my
lose.
bags. Yeah, correct. And they felt, I don't know whether they felt that I would come back or what, but my visa had restrictions. So I couldn't work anywhere but South Australia. Um, and WeWork was only in Sydney and Melbourne. So joining WeWork in Australia was not an option. And I said, okay, I'll figure this out. Came here, picked up another sales role, kept doing that for a year and a few months. Pandemic happened. My role was made redundant, and that was my first role in Australia. So the role was made redundant. The timing was such that I had a baby, so I came to Australia in November 2018. Exactly a year later, I was blessed with a baby boy. And then I
Beautiful.
resumed work, and my role was made redundant. So I said, okay, this is perfect timing. I should just not work, maybe. I should just give time, spend time with him, be at home. I was this paranoid mother about COVID. So I was like, this is perfect. Let me just stay at home and not do anything. So I did that. I think 9 months or more. He turned 1, and I started thinking, what should I be doing? But whilst he was, whilst he was, I was expecting him, um, a not so great incident happened. On my way to work, I was robbed and mugged. So,
Oh my
um,
God.
yeah, so that was like a not so good thing, and all of like I was injured, and thankfully nothing bad happened. Baby was fine, I was fine, but my face was bruised. I had concussion for almost 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I don't remember anything. The memory was erased, so I still don't remember anything. But all of the things that the police and detectives and my husband put together, so I kind of know what would have happened, but I don't know what happened. um, and the work was great. People at work were very, very supportive, and they wanted me to stay home. Doctors wanted me to stay home at least for a month, um, and not do something, not work, and not stress. Um, and that was a period I kept thinking what I wanted to do, because I was really happy. I was over the moon that I was going to be a mother. Um, and I didn't know how to keep my thoughts in the right way. So, so that I'm positive, I'm feeling good. And that's when I started thinking about, what what do I do? How do I make myself useful? How do I make myself feel good? And it has to come, right? So I started thinking, and one day I saw a post on Facebook about someone stating that they're finding it difficult to find a job, and they're new to Australia, and I just posted back, like commented back on that post saying, DM me, I can tell you some tips and tricks, and
Yeah.
happy to help. And I've got a few DMs, not just from that person, from a couple of other people as well. And then I shared, what I would do, how would I look at it, how did I manage when I arrived in Australia. So I came in November, I had a job in January. A lot of people think that's unusual. And I said I had a process, I had a plan, and I just followed that. So, if you want to do it, I can give you the exact blueprint of what I did, and you just have to do that. Um, but that was not very common. And I realized that very soon, because I used to live in a shared house, and there were other roommates, and they said, no, yours is not usual. Like, you've got it. I'm sure you've done well, but it isn't that simple. It isn't that easy. And I used to hear stories. And that's why I posted there. And those stories were the same. Everyone said the same thing to me. So, oh, how did you get it? Because people ask me for local experience, and we don't have local experience. And till the time somebody doesn't give us a job, we wouldn't have a local experience. So it's a circle.
Yeah.
And we don't know what to do. We're trying to even get odd jobs. We're not getting it, and whatnot. So I started helping people, reviewing their resumes, telling them how to write a pitch, tell me about yourself, telling them how to prepare for questions, what can you expect, how do you present your 10 or 15 years of skills, what you should say, what you shouldn't say, and all of those kind of things. And also more of mindset, right? Don't carry your baggage with it, because the hiring manager would see it. And if you have issues at home or personal life, settle them before you go in for an interview or start talking to people, because that will show up. And little things like that. And one day, one of these people who had messaged me, she used to talk to me quite often. So it was her and her husband and her 13-year-old who had moved. And she would talk to me very often. And, I would help her with writing the pitch, reviewing cover letters, applications, pretty much everything. I would talk to her almost every day, and she said, I wish, there was someone like this. And I would have known that there is someone like this before I arrived. I would have prepped well. And I would have landed and gotten a job. So, this is really nice. And she knew I was expecting. And she said, maybe when you take a break, maybe this could be your side gig, or something that you
Yep.
could explore more about, because you'll have time when you're not working. So I was like, and I laughed and I said, oh, all this that I'm telling you is common sense. And she said, but it isn't. What you feel is common sense isn't uh, isn't really the common thing that people. Yeah, that's what you feel, not others.
Yep.
So I was like, okay. That time was, I mean, and I felt good. Like, that was perfect. And I felt, I couldn't have done anything more to make myself in that positive frame of mind. Because every time someone called me and said they got an interview call, I would be so excited and so
Yep.
happy. And that kind of kept me going. So everybody in my house, like, it used to be me and my husband, he would, till then he would be like, if I'm doing on something on my laptop, he would be like, oh, you should just get away and, rest. And, I could do something for you. But when he started realizing that it was, I was reviewing someone's resume or trying to write someone's speech, he'd be like, oh, that's okay. She, makes her happy. Let her do whatever she wants to do. And he was like, and everybody could see that, that was making me happy. My friends could see it, everybody could see it, and kept at it. But, once the boy arrived, I had little time to do it. So it would be bits and pieces. I would talk to people, but there was not a lot time that I had, to do it myself. And it was just me and my husband. So I had to manage the house and everything else as well in between. So I wouldn't get time. And then I wanted him to be away from, screens and, whatnot. So I would be very little doing things, but it kept on lingering and it was there. Like, I wanted to do that.
Sure.
But the stories around people telling, they're having a hard time, including my husband, where, he found it difficult to find a role that he suited him and so on. It kept on. And then when I was wanting to get back, when he turned 1, and everyone said, oh, is that what you're planning to do? You're not planning to go to work?
Yep.
And I started thinking, am I be staying home and not going back to work? I mean, what about my career and stuff? And I was worried, like, what would I do with him? And it's still COVID. And then, mothers and others who were around me said, the faster, sooner that you send him to daycare, the better for him, because, he'll become social, he'll be independent, and he will adapt and adjust. It's you who are not able to. So it's, you're saying that he will not be, but it's not
Yep.
him, it's you. So you need to understand and you need to make up your mind and make yourself. And I was like, okay. And that's when I started thinking, what do I wanted to do? I did not want to do sales for one reason, because I thought with my first job, it was like inside sales, and it was 9 to 5 and all of that. But if I want to grow in my career, and if sales is what I choose, I had seen what that meant in India, which means travel, which means a lot of extra hours, at times odd hours. Um, and that was, and sales is, constant, relentlessly working on targets and so on. And I thought I was not ready for it. With the little boy, I wanted him to be my first priority, and I wanted things to be managed around him. So I said, okay, not sales. And then I was thinking, what do I do? And then, one day I was talking to one of these people that I'd met on LinkedIn or Facebook. And after the call, I felt so agitated. I went to my husband and said, um, I'm going to get a role in talent, and I'm going to be a, recruiter.
Right.
And he used to work from home those days, and he was doing his case. So he used to, do financial crime investigations and stuff. So he was in midst of his case. He heard me and he said, yeah, good idea. We'll talk about it. And then that's it. He thought, it was just me getting angry about, what had happened to the person that I was
Reactionary.
talking to.
Yep.
And yeah, was just agitated. And that's how I am. I would just, suddenly get into a thing and say, oh, I'm going to do this. And after a while, I'll settle down, anger will go away and I'll be fine. So he thought it was one of those moments, and he let it go. And I think 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, I told him that I had a job offer and I have to go toward a daycare, and I think I'm ready, and this is what it is. And he said, are you sure you wanted him to go to daycare? Because we were not permanent residents, so that means we had to pay full daycare, no subsidy.
Yep.
So he's like, "Are you ready to, because that's going to be a cost." And I said, "Yeah, I've done the math. I'll make enough money for him to go to daycare and manage everything around that. So it's not going to be a burden on you. I'd rather be able to not just manage his daycare, but be able to save something on the other side for us, as a family." And he said, "Okay, I'm really happy. Let's just wait for the contract to come and then we'll decide." So he was still thinking that I will change my mind.
Right.
And I said, "No, I've got the contract. I've signed it."
Ha, it's already done.
And he's like, "Oh, okay. Where is the role and what is the company?" And I said, "It's in the city. It's a casual contract. They've said 3 months worth of work." And he was not able to, he couldn't believe in the first place. And I showed him the contract. And he's like, "That's great. I mean, how did you do this? I mean, I'd really want to know how you did it because, you've been a salesperson and account management. This says talent specialist." And this is a lot of money, considering it's casual role and you're paying hourly. And this is not the rate that
Mm,
they're giving in the market. And I'm like, "Yeah, I negotiated it and I got it." And he's like, "How did you do that?" I was like, "That's what I've been doing all my life. 16 years. I've been selling things, convincing people to do things. So
yeah.
I just sold my profile and I sold my expertise of customer service and sales and account management. And that's what I did." And he's like, "Brilliant." And he was really excited. He thought, it was out of nowhere, but then he's like, "This is brilliant. You should take this. You should do this. There's no way you're turning it around." Yeah, okay. And we'll figure it out how we manage our son and his daycare and all of those schedules. So there you go. That's how and so it was, and everybody thought, like including my husband and my friends, they thought 3 months into it, maybe I'll realize that this is not for me, and I'm a
Yeah.
salesperson, and I
Yeah.
want to go back doing my sales. And they all had seen me getting excited about my leads and my closures, and how happy I used to get when I get a deal closed and something really good happens, and I make better profit margins and stuff. So they've seen me that I'm that kind of person, and maybe recruitment wouldn't give me that kick, and I'll get bored in 3 months or maybe, and I will give up and then I'll go, which did not happen. It was fun. I loved the role. It was the same, and I was like, and I told one of my friends one day that you think I'm not doing sales, but I am. I am
Yeah.
selling the employer to the candidate, and I'm selling the candidate to the employer. So I
Yeah.
am still selling, and this sales even more. This sales is even gives me more kick, and makes me feel even better because it's not when a person gets a job, it's not just that one person, it's that whole
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
that is happy, and it changes everybody's life around that person. And she said, "Wow, that's a really good way of looking at it." And I said, "No, that's not me." There's someone who called me and said that, and I was hiring for COVID hotline back then for
Yeah.
state
Wow.
government of Victoria. And one person called me and he said, "Thank you for the offer, Ragi." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I thought it was the usual call. And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, that's all right. I'll give you the start date." And I was doing my usual drill. And he said, "No, I just wanted you to know that, what you've done is great. I'm really happy. I didn't know what I was going to do. I have someone who's
Yeah.
ailing. That means because of COVID, I can't go out and work. I'm the only person who works in the family. That means I have no job, and you've
Yeah.
given me a work from home job, and I am so grateful. And I just wanted to
That's so
let you know
good.
that my family is so happy." So that was like that moment where I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the reason I want to get out of bed every day, and do what I was doing." And it was high volume recruitment, so eventually it was giving me the same kick.
Yeah.
And my manager knew that I enjoyed big numbers. I loved spreadsheets. And I wanted to, see through the whole thing. And um, I think he saw that in the very first week of me joining. And
Yeah.
he literally handed over the whole project, like, that piece of the contract to me and said,
Yeah.
"This is yours. Run with it. Do whatever you want. I trust you. I know you'll get the numbers."
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how I got into recruitment. And then I also realized slowly and steadily that what I wanted to do on the sidelines with my career coaching company relaunch, this aligns really, really well. So it complements. So my role
Yeah.
complements my side gig, and my side gig complements thing. I know what happens on the ground, and I can, add value when I'm career coaching. I can actually tell what are the trends in the talent market and what's
Yeah.
happening. So yeah, that's how I transition myself into talent, and I love doing what I do.
36% of listeners won't subscribe to this podcast, and that's a real shame. If you want to help me share the stories and help others learn and grow, then please like and subscribe.
Wow, I tell you what, that was an epic response to one question. And I couldn't, I wanted to. There were so many questions that have just come out of that. And thank you so much, because that was definitely a very long story from a very short question. So thank you. What I will do is I'm just very going to try to take a couple of very quick thoughts and responses, because there was a lot to digest. But tell me, how important do you think sales, your experience in sales, how important do you think that's been in defining your career where it is? And you did touch on it a little bit there at the end. And I feel like for me, that would probably be one real clear delineator in for you being able to get where you are at the moment. Do you think that's correct?
It is, but I wouldn't just say sales. The way I would look at it is when I ponder on, what my career looks like, and I often reflect, go back, look at my resume and things, and there are bits and pieces from all of my roles that I've done that has made me what I am today. And it's like, the teaching role, that my first job as a teacher taught me patience. Like when I used to enter the
Yeah.
classroom, I would, compose myself that, now you're a teacher. And if a kid says something which is not appropriate, you can't react. And that's exactly what I do when I'm getting into a meeting and I know there would be, there would be difficult conversations and there would be not so nice things said. I know how to control myself and how to be, calm and go into that Zen mode where, where I would sink in things, and give it a thought before I do it. The next role was in a contact center, taught me discipline. It taught me that every minute, every second was so important because, I used to work for United Airlines, and it was a contact center. So there used to be SLAs for the client.
Yep.
So United Airlines was the client, IBM Dakshin India was the provider of the BPO, or the company that run the BPO. So, and United Airlines would say from 1 a.m. in the 1 in the night India time to 7 in the morning India time, we have these many intervals. So we got to have, say, 400 people logged in on calls, and so there used to be like really detailed SLAs. And if you did not meet even one SLA in there, which means, IBM Daksh has to pay United Airlines versus them paying IBM. So
Yeah.
that's the how, which means I had to, if I've got a 30-minute break, when the break is on my system, I have to walk out, go to the cafeteria, order food, get the food ready, have the food, go to the toilet if I wanted, and then start walking back to my desk. And at 29 minutes, I should be at my desk, putting on my headsets on to go on at 30 minutes.
Wow.
Right. So it has to be that precise. So, and then I was a spoiled kid as a kid at home. I would always break rules. I was probably the most difficult, like of the two of us that my mom had, I was the difficult one. I would not, eat on time. I was very indisciplined that way. That taught me the discipline, that how important every single minute is.
Yeah.
And importance. It was the same with 15 minutes. So when I'm going for a meeting, I make sure that I am in the meeting and the meeting starts at that time.
Yeah.
because I know, I'm waiting, making somebody else wait.
Yeah.
And I can't do that.
But to
So that's
be,
that. And then,
but to
yes.
have the pressure of knowing that your sales will pay for other people's salaries, that level of pressure, and then to walk away from that and then now negotiate and be in a position where you have to pay the daycare and the family costs and all the other things. You're just looking after you and your family now. So I don't know whether they feel like there's almost less pressure or maybe more, but I mean that whole transition piece throughout your career, and to have those experiences, that is only something that you can share and inspire others with.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't say more or less, but that was the demand of that job. And I think it was good that and I did, when I got into that role, I didn't know that was that, that's how difficult
Yeah.
my targets are going to be. I just picked it up because that's the only role that was offered to me. Up until then, for the 7 years that I've been, I was more like I would walk into interviews, walk out of with a contract. There were times that I've said no to a lot of offers because of, it's not close to my house. I can't commute that far. And then there was this phase of my life where no one wanted to offer me a job.
Yeah.
A, because they thought there was a big gap. Who does that? B, I came back and I got married. So they thought, oh, now she's married. Maybe she'll have other responsibilities and whatnot. So the biases that women face. So this was the only job that was offered. So I just took it thinking, okay, no one wants to offer me and they've offered me, so I'll do it. But I think 3 or 4 months down the line, I met the founder and she sat me down and I was talking about, how difficult it is for me to commute. It's really far and I've never done this before. Um, so, I was trying to negotiate, the timings of me coming in and leaving office. And also negotiating, getting it was a 6-day job and I wanted it to be a 5-day job because I was always used to a 5-day. So it was more of negotiating. And that's when she started telling me that, this is she literally put the balance sheet in front of me and said, this is how we look. This is how the team is. These are the salaries. This is what we make from our existing clients. If you renew them, you make this. If you get new clients, this is this. And this is the amount that we need every month to pay off everybody's salaries.
Yeah.
And that hit me hard. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that my role was so important. And she's like, look, you're doing really well. I know you're doing your 100%. The way you give your demos and, you have ideas and you're exploring industries that we never explored. So you're doing great, but, I just wanted to share this with you. I'm happy to negotiate the terms of, you walk in when you want to, you walk out when you want to. I'm not going to stress on that. And you do a 5-day role, but I was paid for a 6-day job, but I only worked 5 days. And she made sure that the team was okay because it wouldn't look nice for someone for when the rest of the team works at six days and the rest of the team has to come at 9 o'clock and I am okay to come in. So she managed that expectation. So no one was like, they were not feeling anything against me, but rather everybody supported me. And I don't know what magical things she would have said to the team, but the team were very supportive. They were like, she's the one who gets, so if I am doing a demo and I would go and tell a tech person to come and help me on the demo to tell a particular feature, he would leave everything and come and sit with me. And that was brilliant because they were like, okay, you're going to get us new sales, right? So we'll do everything that you're going to tell us to do. So it was hard. I think that was hard. I mean, my life now is, my jobs are not like that. I never worked with any company after that where that was kind of the pressure that I had. So it was hard. I think, compared to what I am doing, it's not hard at all because this is my choice. That was not like I had to do it. I mean, I would have left the job and, if I would have left the job, they wouldn't have said anything. And which I did after 2 years. I got another role and it was a growth and they were happy for me. And they said, it's a next step for you. And we know that, you want to do bigger things. So they were very happy with my growth. but what I'm doing with my family and all of that, I can, that's my choice. So if I don't want to do it someday, I don't have to, because my husband's still earning. I could do
Yeah,
something
of
easily.
course.
So
So,
this is a choice.
so you mentioned something about local experience, and I wanted to ask you about not just how hard it was, just to migrate and then to start in, Australia. And you mentioned that, you sort of arrived late year and were hired early that year. How did you get around the local experience thing? Because it's obviously something that's on the tip of everyone's tongue when it comes to even like migrant engineers or international, workers and professionals. How did you navigate that? And maybe what's some of your advice on that?
I'll be very honest, Darren. I actually did not have it hard. Or the way I would put it, I kind of knew that those questions will be asked, and I had a plan how to navigate them. And I had a mindset. I was very clear from the word go of what I wanted to do. So I had a proper plan and a strategy before I arrived here. So I knew I wanted to be in sales, but I knew that I couldn't get the sales role that I had at WeWork in India. I was an account director managing a massive portfolio across India. I'm not going to get that because I don't have a network. I don't know contacts on the ground, and that's what sales is all about. Who do you know, and what's your network, what's your contacts? So I knew I shouldn't be applying for those roles. The second thing was I even though I'd worked in the UK for a bit and studied there, and I did have clients in the UK and in the US, and I had colleagues who I worked with. I knew working there on the ground would be different. So I was just managing them sitting in India, and I was just managing one account or one client. So talking that language is easy. And I was doing with places that I had experience. So I can talk about UK quite a lot because I've studied and lived there. So when
Sure.
someone starts talking to me, I can relate to them. And with the US, because most of my clients sat there, I worked, my first job was United Airlines. So I pretty much knew North America, what state, what's the kind of languages that they have, and thanks to all my United Airlines training and airports. And so I pretty much knew, even though I had not visited it, I kind of knew what that, so I could relate to people there. I knew I had nothing with Australia. I had a few colleagues here who I worked with, but I had no account that I had managed.
Yep.
My brother had worked a lot with 3G, Three Global Services, back long ago, with T-Mobile. Yeah, Three Mobile, yeah. And he visited Australia pretty much every 6 months. So I knew Australia from him. I had never landed
Right.
here.
Had
So
some
I knew
insight.
this is going to be, yeah. So I knew this was going to be very different. This is going to be a very different playing ground for me. And I had to, understand that. So my plan was get an inside sales role or a sales role which does not require to have contacts, which means I have
Yeah.
contacts and I'm calling and convincing. So that's the kind of role that I wanted. I was living literally out of a suitcase with my previous role in WeWork. So I did not want to have that hectic life. I wanted a 9 to 5, 5 days, where once I finish my job, I'm back home. I'm not thinking about work, which was not my roles behind. So it was a step down, but it was also a way that what I wanted to do. I had
Yeah.
come to Australia to relax, to have a better life, to have a work-life balance and so on. So I had that plan, and I would only apply to the roles that I knew that I could convince the person,
Yeah.
and then navigate that whole question, local experience. And I think I was lucky, fortunate, whatever you call. People knew we work very well.
Yeah. Well, it's
So
a big brand.
thanks. Yeah, thanks to all of the news, good, bad, ugly. People knew what the brand was, and even the company that I joined, they were the one of the questions that the CFO or the CEO asked me was, "Why do you want to join us? We're not as fancy as we work. Your coffee is better than ours." And I'm like, if I had a choice, I would have joined WeWork, but I can't be in Sydney. I can't be in Melbourne. So, and Adelaide doesn't have WeWork. So, then I'm left with your coffee and not a WeWork coffee. So it was easy. And I think
Yeah.
at times, I can't hear no. So as a salesperson, you shouldn't be getting bogged down with no's and rejections. So I had to put my blinders on. I used to do all funny stuff at times when people used to ask me local experience. And this is one of the funny things, and I don't know whether it works really for everybody. So when someone would ask me about local experience, and I was annoyed one of the days because it was the third call that I was getting, and someone was asking me local experience, and I said, "Oh, I can't hear you clearly. I think the network is bad." And I did that 3 times. The fourth time, the person just forgot that question and asked me something else. And I
Wow.
spoke about
I love that.
all of
Oh,
my
I
profile.
love that. Ragi, I have to be supremely honest. It's been very amazing, and I feel like I want to let you talk, and I'm not getting a lot of words in questions. So what I'd really like to do, if you will have me, I'd love to split this up into two, because unfortunately I've got to go at three. I've still got
Yeah.
all of my questions. I asked you one question and two follow-ups, and I'm like, and I want to, but then you just keep on like giving me the great information and beautiful stories. So with your blessing, I'd love to actually do two parts to this
Yeah.
podcast, because as I said, I asked you my first question, and I think when I was timing it, it was something like 28 minutes.
Oh,
And
oh God. I
yeah,
can't shut up
which
at
is
this.
great. Like it's totally fine. And look, I'm very new at this. I mean, I'll have some that are 45, some that go for an hour and 10 just a touch over. But I feel like, and I'm looking at the rest of my questions and I'm going, I need to really ask these, and I really want to ask these. So I was going to ask, with your blessing, I'd love to just chop it there, and I'd love to do another hour with you. But
Yeah.
thank you so much. I honestly, I love that you just went, sorry, I can't hear you, and they just moved on to the next question. I mean, that's gold. Um, and yeah, all those things. And I haven't even got to ask about London, how you moved up the team ladder. That's sales. I mean, I always talk a lot about sales, and I actually think, just in your articulation, when you said you can't hear no, there's the things that you just say, oh, it's a lot of things, but I think there's so many lessons that you learn in those sales center places, those call centers or whatever they are, that gave you the gift to articulate in a way that of course you didn't have a problem getting a job. And that is something I really want to try and unpack more for the listeners. So yeah, if I can, I will. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Hope
you.
you have a lovely day, and
Yeah.
I'll remove this around and let's do the next one so I can actually ask the questions that I'd like to.
Sure.
Awesome.
Sure. No problem. Thank you, Darren. It was my pleasure. Love to do this. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you, Ragi. Talk soon.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. Please like and subscribe. It helps us reach so many more aspiring engineering professionals and entrepreneurs. You can find us on LinkedIn, Spotify, and YouTube.